A big reason I've always had a love for mechs was because they were my starting point for video games. The first video game I ever played was MechWarrior 2 on my family's old box computer, and my first console was the original Xbox, with MechAssault 1 being in my first set of games. I've talked about MechAssault 1 and 2 and my love for those games at length on here, but they were all the MechWarrior franchise had on the Xbox, and unlike the PlayStation, we never really got an Armored Core series of our own. And the Armored Core games didn't even really get ported over to Xbox until the 360 or with things like Verdict Day. But there was one other mech game that my dad and I got for the console, simply because it looked cool in the box art and was like 15 bucks. This game was Gungriffon Allied Strike, and unlike MechAssault 2, which went for more space traveling, distant future stuff with the battles, this game took a far more grounded approach, taking place on Earth in the future of 2024. Anyways, this game's plot was essentially just going from mission to mission, but it also stood out because it wasn't afraid to kick your ass. Not to say the game was brutally difficult, but it was a game where you had to play smart if you wanted to come away with a victory, as rushing in guns blazing and acting reckless wasn't the way to go. Effectively, it was the mech equivalent of a tactical shooter where you needed to quickly assess the situation and make a plan to attack, because a few stray bullets could quickly end your life if you weren't careful. So what if we had a level that severely limited your options, made half of those options worthless, and threw the whole strategy shtick out the window as you had to go in fast and loose, guns blazing in a mission with multiple different fail conditions, and half of your mobility options cut off? I never beat this game as a kid, and Mission 10 Highway Star was a major reason why. Okay, so this is a level difficulty spike and not a boss difficulty spike, as you've gathered, but we've still got ourselves a lead up to cover and talk about, so here we go. Mission 1 is titled Badger Hunt, and it's the very easy level that just exists to get you used to the controls and learn that green is friendly, red is hostile, and blue is a mission objective either killing or protecting depending on the map. Mission 2 is known as Pied Piper, and it's here to beat the guns blazing desire out of you as it introduces enemy mammoths that can quickly and easily tear you apart. This game is teaching you to check your radar, make use of both first and third person, and don't be afraid to take things a bit slowly. Don't let the timer up top scare you into thinking you have to rush. Mission 3 is titled Bottle Cap, and it's the one that finally lets you embrace the power of crab. Mission 4 is titled Homecoming, and for some reason it's 2 words instead of 1, and it's a straightforward rescue mission with you having a ton of additional allies as backup. Really, just keep your eyes peeled on the radar and don't be afraid to shoot stuff from a distance. Mission 5, Market Garden, is where you're going to learn that your wingmate Topaz 2 is a fucking idiot and will often get themselves killed within a minute or two of the mission starting. Mission 6, Vanishing Point, is a defense mission, but it's honestly one of my favorites in the entire game because it's the first time you get to use the flight jet with legs, and it's pretty awesome. Plus, the airstrip was always the one mission that stuck out to me visually as well, and the enemies come in pretty hard and aggressive, but not in a bullshit feeling sort of way. Mission 7, Kerberos Gate, looks intimidating, but it's actually the easiest in the game because not only are you likely to beat it by accident, but with how many friendly units this map has, you might even be able to beat it without even touching the controller. Mission 8, Deer Hunt, is a similar mission to Pied Piper, and it threatens to be dangerous based off that premise, but instead of mammoths and swarms of heavy armored tanks, you have barely any opposition. I mean, there's a ton of hostile Valiants, but those things are joke enemies to deal with. They do pathetic damage, are easy to dodge, have a massive hitbox, and will die in 1 or 2 hits. Sending out a lot of them doesn't make this level any tougher. Mission 9, Hide and Seek, should be a very difficult one as there's a ton of enemies and you have to protect the power plants and all your helpers will likely be killed within the first minute. But you only need to keep a single power plant active to survive with a single functioning generator in order to win, and the enemies here are so aggressive that they frequently take each other out from friendly fire. It's definitely a dangerous mission, but that's just because everything is blowing up, and if you die, it's more than likely just going to be on accident as opposed to on purpose. It's kind of awkward, but it wraps around to being a little bit comedic with how it's actually not as difficult as you'd think. So, normally our missions begin with a briefing and we have an objective that's either to protect or destroy the designated objective marked in blue. In Highway Star, we have no such mark. Instead, the objective is actually very simple. Enemies are making a mad dash through this valley, and we have to stop them. However, there's also an additional fail condition that if even a single enemy tank or mech makes it to the end of the map, it's an instant game over. Helicopters thankfully do not count for this, but they're still going to be annoying pests throughout the level. There's also basically no cover aside from an old bridge and a short tunnel, so good freaking luck, jackass, because we gotta go Rambo on this and we have no place to hide or take cover, and we can be killed in about 3 to 4 hits. So you see, the reason this level sucks so much is because... So this level is a massive wall to get over because... The reason this level is going to be so difficult is... This level fucking sucks because it throws so much of the game's rules out the window. So much of this game has been about using the terrain to your advantage and choosing to fight smart instead of just battling every single enemy you see, and usually enemies would come in a small squadron of 2 or 3 because you can kill enemies in 2 or 3 hits, but they can do just the same to you. On top of that, your weapons have limited ammo and can be lost if you get hit in specific locations and parts get destroyed. Not to mention, the only way to heal or restock ammo is to wait and sit under the supply helicopter for a limited time that it decides to actually show up on the map. It's not even guaranteed to show up for every map. And yes, it does fix you up, but it's very slow about it, can easily be shot down, and leaves after about 30 seconds, so you better be there for the resupply when he shows up or you ain't getting crap. Additionally, this level forces you to play aggressive in a way that none of the others do, because while some mechs are easy to take out and distract, others will make a mad dash across the map to exploit the alternate wind condition. Just what we need, Exodia players. Actually, since I'm already making Yu-Gi-Oh comparisons, let's keep it going. Yes, all the enemies come from the same direction upriver, so there's no surprise ambushes, but just like dueling a Tenpai player, knowing exactly what the enemy's going to do doesn't mean much if you don't have a reliable way to stop the attack. And while you do have 5 AI party members helping you, they're not what I'd call reliable, because as you can see in this footage, not even 20 seconds into the level, Sapphire Squadron is completely wiped out. That's not scripted, by the way, they're just idiots. Garnet Squadron may fare a little bit better, but they're not helpful outside of the initial skirmish because their AI not only likes to glitch out and fire at stuff randomly, but they always stay far behind the bridge, opting to look at the pretty colors in the sky or something. And they sure as heck aren't focusing on fighting the enemy. And since Topaz 2 is your wingmate, they'll at least try to be helpful, but their AI is either going to go fight enemies and probably die, or stick near you and still probably die because they have the lifespan of a mayfly. Now, you may be thinking, well, this still doesn't sound too bad. Sure, the English translations aren't the best, and this level is mostly a straight line, but hey, they're not moving that fast, so you could just snipe them from a distance, and you know what? Fair. That would be decently viable if this level wasn't also fucking broken and a glitchy mess. And I don't just mean AI party members firing at their schizophrenic night terrors, I also mean shit like this. These motherfuckers are wave dashing. Granted, it doesn't happen with every enemy, but there's about a 1 in 20 chance an enemy will just be traveling down the river, then decide zoom zoom, gotta go, and suddenly they can basically teleport up to halfway across the map. So you kinda got to play aggressive on this map, but what's even worse is how long this level goes on for. You see that timer at the top of the screen that starts at 13 minutes? Normally that's how long you have to beat the level. However, in this case that's telling you how long this level will last, and how long you have to stay alive while not letting the enemy cross to the other side of the map. And it's not as if these enemies are weak or mostly passive either. There's your machine guns for a few heavy artillery rounds, but enemies in this level love to spam anti-tank missiles. Anti-tank missiles suck because when you use them, their damage is kind of underwhelming. They don't have much ammo, they travel slowly, take forever to lock on, and even if they do lock on, they're still prone to missing. But when the enemy uses them, they have unlimited ammo to do seemingly random damage, ranging from barely scratching you to blowing an arm off in a single shot, and you have Schrodinger's homing capabilities where they might sail right on past you and make you wonder where they were aiming, while others might be following you to the end of the earth. There's going to be so many missiles in this level that you'd think they were one of the 10 plagues God unleashed on the Egyptians in the Book of Exodus. And the thing is, the best way to avoid them somewhat consistently, without camping out near a small rock to hide behind, is to use your roller dash to outmaneuver them. Small problem. See, you can't use the roller dash in the water. This mechanic may come up for 5 whole seconds in Pied Piper or Deer Hunt as you briefly cross a river in those levels, but it's not something you often think of. Over half of this level is submerged in water, and it's also the part of the level that has even a little bit of cover to get behind, so you're going to have to basically spend most of the fight in the river anyways. Oh, by the way, the M1981, or as I call it, the crab, is basically worthless in this level because it's very slow and doesn't have the ability to glide. It has powerful weapons, but gets around quickly from using its roller dash, which doesn't work because we're in the water. And even worse, the crab is only able to move forwards and backwards in the direction it's aiming, so yes, this one mech quite literally has tank controls, and you spawn in the river as well, so you can't just stay on the land throughout the level, especially since it's the one level that immediately starts you in the middle of a firefight with no time to prepare or assess the situation at all, with enemies on top of you and your allies, and most of those allies are going to get killed quickly. So, one of the only 5 mechs you can choose from in this level is worthless. Meanwhile, this game's Ryu and Ken aren't much better because they're supposed to be all-arounder mechs, but without the roller dash, they lose their mobility advantage, so you're stuck with either a slowpoke that's underpowered or a glass cannon with very restricted mobility. Oh, also enemies are sometimes just invisible on this map. Admittedly, I only saw this happen one time and don't remember it happening as a kid, so I'll decide to chalk this one up to just being a quirk in the emulator I was using to record this footage. But, I mean, hey, if it does happen on hardware, then that's just another major strike against this level. Oh, also, there's another enemy mech in this level, known as the BMX-30, that fires 4 rockets at you. If all 4 of them connect, they will one-shot you, so just know that's on the board as well. But thankfully, these guys are pretty slow and fragile, so they're not too hard to take care of, just be careful. So, to beat this level, we're going to need to make sure we have a good loadout. So, what should we go with? Well, the game gives you options, but most of them are wrong. The Type 12 in VW9, aka Type 12's Echo Fighter, don't get their big mobility advantage since the level's covered in water, so you're stuck with under-armored and underpowered mechs if you use them. The M19, aka the Crab, is also worthless as we discussed earlier. Your best options are either All Reliable, KW-LB, aka the Quib, which is pretty good and it's been getting us through the level since the beginning of the game. But the best option is to use the Type 20 with its machine gun penis. And as a side note, I've been binging Ghost in the Shell again, and I've started getting into Cyberpunk 2077 for the first time, and that would 100% be a modification in one of those series. Probably Cyberpunk. But okay, we have our mech, so what about weapons? Well, your default is the 80mm gun. Do not use it. Yes, it has the most ammo, but the 105mm gun does more damage. It may seem like a toss-up, but it's not, because it's more ammo efficient to kill the enemy in fewer shots, as the 105mm gun will 1 or 2 shot most enemies in the game if you hit the right spot, while the 80mm gun is going to usually take 2, 3, maybe even 4 shots to do so. As for your machine gun, just take the 20mm. The difference in speed is so little that the extra damage will be the better option, especially since its slower firing rate leads to it overheating slower as well, so you can fire for longer. As for your rockets, pick either the RP8 or RP9, both of them are great. RP8 is a bit more accurate and does more damage, while the RP9 has more shots. Really though, the damage difference only comes up against something like a Mammoth, so it's more a question of accuracy versus ammo capacity. Pick whichever one you think will be more helpful. Your anti-tank missiles don't matter because they suck. Now, let's beat this damn level, shall we? So now we have to hold off the enemies for 13 minutes, and sure, you do have 5 allies helping you, but really it's closer to 3 because Sapphire Squadron is a complete write-off and will be dead in 30 seconds because their death is a canon event. Ignore Garnet Squadron, they're not going to be very helpful either, just think of them as teleporting enemy insurance, as they can at least distract any mechs that warp by freak accident. But after the initial battle is done, we have 5 enemy types we'll be dealing with throughout this level. Panthers and Sturm Panthers are going to be the primary threat and the fastest opponents you deal with, but they're also going to only have their main offense come in the form of machine guns and anti-tank missiles, though they can carry RP9 rockets, which aren't one-shots, but they are very dangerous, so don't try to fight them directly head-on. Try and stay at a slight angle. Then there's the BMX-30s that are basically helpless at long range, but up close they can one-shot you, so either get behind them or snipe them with your heavy cannon. Don't try to fight them head-on, because you don't want to deal with a random unlucky rocket. Tigers are annoying because they can fire at you with their cannons, but they're slow and mostly just spam anti-tank missiles. Treat them like shorter Sturm Panthers, except they don't use rockets, so you can Leroy Jenkins them. And Well, honestly, once you know what's coming, the first 10 minutes of the level can be pretty easy to manage in most circumstances, even if the helicopters love to harass you and be annoying throughout the level. But that statement also ignores the fact that there's no checkpoints in this level, so anytime you die, you have to start the entire process over and make sure you don't get hit too many times, because there's not really any ways to heal outside of a single supply drop, which isn't very useful. And also, it's a 13-minute level, not a 10-minute level, because when there's 3 minutes left on the clock, you have two major linchpins to deal with. A squadron of tanks that will travel through the tunnel and go right on past you, leading to a loss, as well as the Mi-57s, which are the first enemies we see on this map capable of flying. Now, while the Mi-57s don't have too much damage on their own, they don't need to, because they're also going to play the objective of trying to get to the end of the map. However, both the tanks and Mi-57s have kind of stupid AI, where the second you aggro one of them, the entire squadron will get tunnel vision and decide you need to die. But their pathing isn't the best, so if we use this tunnel, we can get the tanks stuck on level geometry and befuddle the Mi-57s and kind of force them to come down certain routes. But keep an eye on your radar to be safe, as there's usually at least one that will try and attack you from behind after a minute or two has passed. But okay, we just funnel them in easy, right? We can just stall them out here. Well, kind of, but this game likes to be a dick, and during the very last minute, it will send a hit squad of multiple VW-1s that don't play the objective and instead will bum rush you and try to kill you, and they move faster than you do. These guys are fast and hit hard and are more than happy to waste all your progress. Don't fight them fairly. In fact, don't even bother fighting them unless they come in the tunnel, because we don't need to kill these remaining enemies. There's no more mechs trying to play the objective now, hopefully. Everything just wants you dead. The only thing we need to do to win this level is for 12 minutes and 59 seconds to pass without you dying or an enemy crossing the map. As long as that happens, it doesn't matter why or how, you will be rewarded the win. Sure, it's cheap, but it's exploiting the game, and who the hell cares? This level sucks. It's broken, it's awful, it's just horrendous. God-awful level. As a kid, Gungriffon Allied Strike was the hardest game I'd ever played, to the point I never even beat it. Granted, not for the reason you'd think, as I did eventually get past this level through some sheer luck, and the level after it was a complete joke. But unfortunately, not too long after that, I remember our house was struck by lightning and the Xbox was one of the devices that got fried, so I couldn't play the game anymore, and when I finally got an Xbox 360 years later, the game disc didn't work on the system, unfortunately. In fact, I beat the game for the first time when getting footage for this video. Gungriffon is an interesting game, and there's cool stuff here, but between the weird glitches and the localization getting comedically worse and worse as the game goes on, you can tell there was at least some level of being rushed out the door. There is cool stuff here, but with all the environments looking more or less the same aside from like 3 levels and weird jank, I'm only going to recommend it if a tactical shooter crossed with a mech combat game sounds appealing to you, because it's gonna be for a very niche audience. Especially if you want to play it nowadays, it's probably gonna have to be through emulation, and at that point, Mech Assault 1 and 2 are right there, dude. And that's to say nothing about the Armored Core series. Does make me want to go replay Verdict Day, though. Anyways, that's all I've got for this video. If you enjoyed and want to see more content of varying quality, consider liking, subscribing, and hyping the video, as next episode will most likely be another boss fight with a giant squid, and no, it's not the one from Dragon Quest VIII. Until then, take care, everyone.
Look, you just gotta try harder not to suck.